Project Sapient is a podcast meant to engage our brothers and sisters in the law enforcement and military communities in conversations that we all know we need to have. All opinions you'll hear are our own, are protected by our First Amendment of the United States Constitution, and in no way reflect or are meant to reflect the opinion of any specific agency, officer, or service member. Some opinions may be controversial. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy.
Ladies and gents, it's Pete from Project Sapient. Ayman's not sitting here across from me, feeling a little lonely. But you know what? Ayman did have the distinct honor and pleasure of going on the American Warrior radio broadcast. They're listened to by thousands of stations across the country. It's a total honor that they had Ayman on there. They're telling the stories of the men and women who protect us at home and abroad. Check out their website, AmericanWarriorRadio.com. We want to say thanks to our tens of thousands of supporters, of listeners, and our awesome supporters, the Till Valhalla Project, DCD Automotive, AAA Police Supply, HAVOK Journal, our partners at the Profiles and HAVOK Podcast, Second Mission, Live Boston 617, OD Kit, Eagle Eye Firearms, GunTrack, Fit Cops, 22 Mohawks, and Joint Operations. We love you guys. Seriously, you've made us into something that we never thought this would ever be. Getting Ayman on national radio shows. I mean, it's pretty cool. So, I'm going to cut out of this, and I'm going to put you right into the cut from American Warrior Radio. It was pretty interesting to listen to. I listened to the cuts. You got their host, Ben Buehler-Garcia. Ayman and him go back and forth about a ton of different stuff with the military and policing and all that. So, have a listen.
We all owe them, but very few of us know them. They took an oath to protect us at home and abroad, so the rest of us can live safe and free. They are the men and women of our military and first responder communities, and these are their stories. American Warrior Radio is on the air.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to American Warrior Radio. This is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia. Joe Galloway, in his book, We Were Soldiers, wrote, "We who have seen war will never stop seeing it." That quote came to mind when I was first introduced to today's guest. Reviewing his bio, one could say that he was fated to become a witness to war on his first day on Earth. Ayman Kafel was born in Liberia, where his father was working at the time. Not long thereafter, the Liberian Civil War forced his family to flee back to their native Lebanon. Then the Lebanese Civil War forced his family to uproot once again, this time coming to the United States. This taught Ayman a lesson much earlier than most of us had to learn, that there is evil in the world. When our nation was attacked on 9/11, Ayman knew it was his turn to confront evil and enlisted in the U.S. Army. He had combat deployments during Operation Iraqi Freedom, but his Army career was cut short by a forced medical retirement. But that did not end his commitment to protecting his fellow citizens from the wolves. He became a police officer and has served 15 years with the Attleboro, Massachusetts Police Department. He currently commands his department's problem-oriented policing unit. We're going to find out more about that a little bit later. He's a regular contributing author to the HAVOK Journal and is finding great success with a relatively new podcast called The Sapient Project. Ayman, welcome to American Warrior Radio.
Hey, how are you, Ben? How you doing?
I'm terrific. Our nice East German used equipment here seems to be working just fine. Now, Ayman, I spent some time, my early formative years as well, in countries other than the U.S. It sometimes got a little sporty. I know once a couple of shotgun-toting dudes went out on a remote village road and were sent to assassinate my father. Luckily, that didn't come to pass. I was trying to think of living U.S. citizens, though, born and raised stateside, who have ever had to confront the reality of war in their own backyard like you did. And, you know, maybe there's still some World War II vintage folks laying around that remember the Japanese fire balloon attacks on the West Coast. I would include the Japanese families who were interred in internment camps during that era as well. But then we have to go all the way to 9/11 before we Americans can get a sense of what you endured in your early years.
Yeah, very true. I actually kind of wonder that myself at times. especially my current profession in law enforcement, and sometimes the minor societal issues that go on stateside here versus what I've seen overseas kind of plays a huge factor in a lot of my decision making and what the way I view the world.
Yeah, you've recounted memories of artillery strikes interrupting your playtime, and I mean, wow.
Oh yeah, that was in Lebanon actually. I remember I was on a hill with my if you remember those little cars that had the pedals, to get you going, and I was going up a hill and I wanted to go down really fast, but that got cut short by artillery shells hitting the side of the mountain near my village. And I remember I just ditched everything and ran home.
How old were you at that time?
I must have been 5 or 6.
Okay, definitely old enough.
Maybe even younger, because I only came to the United States when I was in the second grade. Actually, is when we first landed in the U.S. With nothing with us really when we escaped Civil War.
Well, your family escaped those situations to seek a better life in the United States. Do you feel, Ayman, that impacted or really has influenced your deep love for this country? I mean, your family was treated relatively well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, coming from different parts of the world between Africa, namely Liberia when I was living there, and then Lebanon, and coming here. And over here, my deep love for freedom and what this country stands for is very deep. And what's interesting to me is being in the military and being amongst other immigrants who are in the U.S. military, who became citizens, joined the military, and all that. It's like this deep love for this country that I find that not that many American civilians share. I don't know if that would surprise people, but it's a different type of love for this country.
No, it doesn't surprise me a bit. I know when I was growing up, I mean, the U.S. was always the land of milk and honey. And looking back, those of us who have been to other places around the globe, we do recognize what a precious gift that we've been granted and how good we actually have it as much as we like to gripe. I mean, it's interesting. I had Matthew Marsden on the show, probably about a year and a half ago. I don't know if you recognize that name. He's a very accomplished actor, but he's British.
Yes.
And in the interview, he's literally standing in the parking lot of a Cracker Barrel somewhere in Texas, and he's telling me, he says, Ben, this is, the United States, it is the last. It is the greatest bastion of freedom on the planet. And to hear someone tell you that with a British accent tends to be a pretty brisk bit of water in the face.
Absolutely. I mean, while during my time in Iraq, when I was deployed there, I had a lot of talking with the Iraqi public and even the military and the Iraqi police, and I would tell them all the time, like, look at just my squad alone, and we were all mixed race, yet we all saw each other as one, which is the American soldier. It didn't factor into any of our decisions on each other. All we saw us as one. As the military term says, we're all wearing green. That's all we care. We bleed green. Our skin color is green. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's something that really drove home for me what the military was really all about, especially going to basic. And it's funny, while I was at basic at Fort Sill, before we went across the tracks, as they call it, we all got together to say prayers in our individual languages, which was something fascinating to me at the time because I never thought I would see that.
That is very cool.
Yeah, where very mixed religions were saying a prayer in their own languages, yet we were all U.S. soldiers, getting ready to go to basic and to deal with the challenges of basic, but we still saw each other as just one people, as in Americans.
Well, let's back up a little bit. Given the context of what we were talking about, the gratitude and the deep feelings that you had after coming to the United States, tell us about your mindset then when the 9/11 attacks happened.
To me, 9/11, all of us have our own 9/11 stories of where we were at the time. And me, I was just, that happy-go-lucky college kid, going going up the stairs to my college, and then I see everybody running out. I had no idea what was going on, and people are yelling to me, "Hey, you know, we need to get out of here. Country's under attack." And in my mind, I was like, "Holy cow, okay." And, you know, I get to my car to turn the radio on, and sure enough, yeah, I hear on the radio, and I race home. And to us, I remember my family, to us, it was like the war came home, you know, to our home now.
Mm-hmm.
And those bad entities in the Middle East that we escaped made their way here now. So that's when I kind of something clicked in me, like probably most of us who ended up enlisting. Something clicked in me, like, no, I need to get over there, and I need to, because I felt it was also my responsibility as a guy from the Middle East, you know, whose family's from the Middle East. It's also my responsibility to go over there and to root out that evil that's there.
Did you feel a little bit of an extra burden maybe because of that?
Oh, absolutely. One thing I was worried about, which again that quickly got dispelled when I joined the military, is how I was going to be perceived in the military as being a guy from the Middle East, joining the American, you know, the U.S. military and going to fight over there. I was worried, again, because with the amount of misinformation out there, and social media wasn't as big back then as it is now, but even back then, it was all the media hype and everything that, you know, oh, we need to put, you know, anyone looks like Middle Easterners, we need to lock them away. You know, you hear all those things. So I didn't know how I was going to really be received, but it completely changed what I thought when I hit Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and I was amongst brothers, and that's it. That's all I was.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was very different. So to me, that extra burden I did have, but it was also shared with the rest of my soldiers.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ayman might have maybe considered a career in the military. We'll find out more about that when we come back, but that was not to be. He was discharged, or the medical discharge, but found a second mission. When we come back, we'll talk more about that. Now, if you're a member of the military or first responder community, like Ayman is both, you know the tradition of challenge coins. If you're looking for a new coin or need to replenish your stock, please consider my friends at Boch Custom Coins, BochCoins.com. They did our American Warrior radio coins, and we always get great feedback when they're presented. Here's an idea for our civilian listeners. If you have a loved one who wears the uniform, why not consider funding a custom coin design for them as a gift? I'll sweeten the deal. Send me a message to bbg at AmericanWarriorRadio.com. I'll arrange for a special discount. Boch Custom Coins are some of the highest quality coins out there. You can explore design options and pricing at BochCoins.com. Welcome back to American Warrior Radio, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia. We're speaking with Ayman Kafel. I'm doing that with a Spanish accent, Ayman. What you say your name for me?
It's Ayman.
Ayman, okay.
Yes.
I'll probably get that right about 15 minutes after the show's done. But irregardless, we're very pleased to have you here. Now, you, as I understand it, were medically discharged from the Army. Would you, at that point, had you considered making it a career?
Oh, yes, I was. When we got home, I was actually getting ready to mobilize again with another unit. Because at the time, the field artillery unit I was in was disbanded. I actually went into like the history books because that unit has been in every single war since the Revolutionary War. So it was the oldest artillery unit in the country. So it ended up getting disbanded, and I got essentially transferred to an MP unit. And that unit was getting ready to go into Iraq, and I was getting spun up to go. And my whole plan was actually to go into special forces as you know, to go that route and make it a career. Okay,
so you found yourself then looking for a second mission, and that led you to where you are now.
Yeah, very, yep, exactly. That's the thing. After I got medically discharged, you know, I ran into the identity issues of, well, you know, here I was kind of laying it all out and being deployed and also being that protector / warrior type in the American society in America, in my homeland. And decided that law enforcement would be my next step to go to.
Now, let's see. I'm going through your bio. You've had 8 duties in 15 years: patrol officer, plainclothes officer, detective, fire investigator, Metro SWAT operator, DEA task force officer, DEA special response team assistant team leader. You get bored easily, don't you?
Yeah. I do get bored, so I keep moving along, and it's just I think it's just the way I've become, and the way I am. It's just that determined type of individual who just wants to continue to push myself.
Now, tell me, I found the problem-oriented policing unit, and let me use this description off of your bio, employs unconventional methods and special forces philosophy in achieving specific objectives in the community. These unconventional methods range from winning hearts and minds to specific strategic law enforcement actions to arrest and prosecute those who are the root cause of various crimes. That sounds like something out of a TV series.
That's actually on Profiles in HAVOK. I was recently on their podcast, and he keeps Christopher Paul Meyer keeps referring to me as the character from The Shield, because every time he hears that's all he pictures.
Well, now I tell you, you don't know this, but I actually graduated from college with a criminal justice degree, but never took the next step because I decided that giving me a gun and a badge would be bad for me and the community. But so I'm a little extra sensitive to this, and I actually find that the existence of a unit like yours, regardless if it sounds like a TV show or not, very compelling. And let me ask you, is this unique to your community, and I just don't know about it?
So it's a policing philosophy that is a little bit unique, because it's like that mix of community service policing, or community policing, and more of a strategic end to it, where my job is to answer the why. So if for example, if there's this house that has so many issues, and we keep repeatedly going there as police and all that, what my unit does, we dive into the root cause as to why. Versus, patrol division, they have to repeatedly go there over and over again. My job is to find out why do we keep going over there, and then to solve that problem, essentially, through various methods, whether law enforcement action or even social work, or and using the community as a whole to my advantage with whatever resources that is available to me.
So it's not just kicking doors.
Oh, no. It's like this wide range between kicking doors to getting food to the homeless. It's a very, very wide range that this unit has. And especially, for example, like those who overdose because of the opioid epidemic that's been happening in this country for several years. One thing that we do not do in this unit is continuously arrest addicts, because addicts aren't really the root cause of it. It's more on the drug dealer end and all that. So what we tend to do with addicts is try to get them help, get them going on a better lifestyle, and that has its own rewards alone. When you see somebody who was down so badly with their addiction, and then to overcome it and move on to be a productive member of society and have jobs, and one of our last addicts actually runs a whole construction company now. And it's amazing to hear these stories and know that we've had that type of influence on somebody, and that's the whole aspect between winning the hearts and minds of people, essentially, because that's where the success has come from. So
given your exceptional ninja investigative skills, I'm sure you looked into us before you came on the show. So that really our mission is to bridge that gap of understanding. And I cannot, at least in my adult life, think of a time when that gap has been larger between the average community member and the men and women of our law enforcement. Now, you, in one of your HAVOK Journal articles, you wrote, within what is normally a peaceful world for most of us, there is a secret world, a world that is dangerous, volatile, and violent.
Yeah.
People may not want to hear that, but that's the truth of what you and your comrades deal with every day.
Yes, that is very true, and I call it the shadow world or the real world, and it's when I was doing work with the task force and my various investigations as a detective and stuff, and when we do conduct surveillance operations and even high profile warrants, it's amazing to me that if people knew the frequency of these things that was happening around them day in and day out, it would cause them to have a little bit of that either fear or thanks that there are people out there willing to lay it on the line to protect what we have.
Well, and I would propose to you, sir, that right now is the time when the general public could use a little bit more of that. I know at least in my local community, I don't know, maybe 90% of the stuff, and I'm talking serious stuff, not jaywalkers, but 90% of the stuff that happens never makes the news. And
I agree, and that's the thing. Everyone, for some reason, the public loves to hear about, click it or ticket or the speeder or stuff like that. Like my unit, that's not what we look for at all. Every unit has its own specific function, like traffic units and various other units that have their role in the community. But to dive into root causes and really look into the what causes a community to go downwards or upwards or whatever, I think that's where the real work is at.
And much of this, people would be shocked to hear, is happening in broad daylight. I mean, we're not talking midnight to 6.
Oh no, yeah, this is I've done the entire surveillance operations in everyday malls, large malls, shopping plazas. You're talking, these individuals that these really bad people have no regard to human life whatsoever, and they will end up shooting in broad daylight if they have to. That's essentially, the other side of what I do. That's essentially the real work that goes on day in and day out that people will never ever know about.
I mean, I think that the average, I shouldn't say that. I'm not going to cast a broad net here, but I suspect some civilians blanch at the idea of military philosophies and tactics being employed on their streets. But the reality is that bad guys have gotten better informed, better armed, and more violent, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. We have this huge, now what's prevalent to us is these ghost guns in law enforcement. I don't know if you've heard of these things where basically, right out of 3D printers, they make these guns and we've had investigations where we've arrested an individual who's already sold over 100 ghost guns that are out there in the community, and we don't know where they are or where they went, but that's the reality of what is now happening with the advancement of technology. Bad people will take advantage of it, and I don't think the public really understands that until they have to live with it, until it's in their neighborhood. Then they see it.
And it's too late. It's a bad time to learn that. Yeah,
exactly. By then, it's too late.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Ayman Kafel. Visit projectsapient.org. He's got some very interesting insights. And Ayman, when we come back, I want to talk about something you proposed in a couple of your articles, and that's the idea of sheepdogs versus hybrid wolves. Stick around. We'll be right back, folks. Welcome back to American Warrior Radio, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia. We're talking with Ayman Kafel. He served both in the military, and now he serves our communities in law enforcement. If you really want to hear a unabashed and unfiltered, unvarnished conversation about what the men and women of our military are going through now, visit projectsapient.org, SAPIENT.org. Ayman, I've seen your photos, so I want to be very careful here, and plus, given your federal contacts, you might have me deported. But I want to double-check something. So the so-called, and I use the air quotes, ghost guns, they themselves are legal weapons, right? I mean, I can buy parts somewhere and put a gun together in my garage, and that's legal.
Oh yeah. That's it's illegal when you're using the commission of a crime, and the only reason why it is such an issue is the lack of tracking of them.
Okay.
There's no serial numbers, nothing like that. So for us law-abiding citizens who own guns, buy guns, play with guns, all that stuff, those are not the people that we worry about in the law enforcement world. It's the ones who use them for nefarious reasons.
Right, and I just want to clarify that. The bad guys, no matter how they got the gun, well, I mean, I suppose there'd be extra charges they stole the gun, but it's not the gun's fault, it's the bad guy's fault.
Exactly. No. That's why they have this term in law enforcement, the ghost gun, because technically they're not serialized, and you can buy gun parts from anywhere and put a gun together. And like I said, the minute you start using it for illegal activity, well, now that's when you have the crime.
Okay, got it. So to me, I think it was one or two of your more fascinating articles that really hooked me, and I don't know if it was on the HAVOK Journal, if I saw it somewhere else, but you talk, and so often in common verbiage, we talk about law enforcement officers and as sheepdogs. The sheepdogs protecting the flock from the wolves out there. But you coined a new phrase that I'd never heard of before, and that's hybrid wolves. Expand upon that concept for our listeners, if you would.
Sure. So with sheepdogs, that kind of became the big thing, especially after Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman kind of used that phrase or that term in his book On Killing and On Combat and various other texts that I've seen, and even in the law enforcement military world, sheepdog was thrown around a lot, and I had to kind of take a step back a while ago when I wrote it actually for HAVOK Journal. I realized that there are certain members of our warrior class that are not sheepdog. Now, sheepdog is the type, yes, it's the sheepdog is the protector of the flock and all that all that great stuff. But the term I use, the hybrid wolf, is the truest practitioner of the warrior mindset, of the law enforcement, of being a soldier, Marine, whatever that might be. That because they hone in their skills to the point where it's razor sharp, and they're not just waiting for the fire, so to speak. They are looking for it. You know, they're out there hunting for it. There are very few of those within the ranks, in the warrior class, so to speak. And there's this very famous quote. I forget exactly who said it, but it's one of the ancient Greeks who said, for every 100 warriors, 80 are just targets. 10 are the true warriors, and we are happy to have them. And the one who is the true warrior will bring all of them home. And that one is that hybrid wolf. He or she is that individual that basically holds the most burdens from any organization because they feel so passionate about it, and they're always out there working, hunting, so to speak, looking for evil to root it out.
That brings up, we're not a political talk show, but that brings up something that just makes me grit my teeth, and particularly given my close association with law enforcement families and my educational background. I just saw an article recently where some jurisdiction somewhere, probably California would be my guess, but now they're requiring the law enforcement officers to justify in writing whenever they make a gut instinct stop. And that is the dumbest thing I have ever heard in my life. I mean, talk a little bit, because when you talk about these hybrid wolves, part of it is it's the gut instinct. It's the ability to sense and sniff something out before it happens. And that's what I think we used to call proactive policing, and it solved a lot of crimes.
Well, that's the thing. Proactive policing is that it's the solving of crimes, it's the prevention of crimes, right? When I'm out in the public and I'm doing my job and I'm actually working and I observe certain characteristics that tell me, this is a drug dealer, or this guy's carrying a gun, or this gal is doing what they're not supposed to be doing, and I act on those instincts, on that gut instinct, and that gut instinct basically drives me towards it. How can how can you explain that in writing? It's nearly impossible, because you're talking about an internal compass of yours that directs you essentially to where bad people are. And that's something it's very hard to describe, where I even have a hard time describing it in police reports when I'm writing an affidavit or I'm putting together an arrest report. It's very hard to try to articulate how you got to where you got.
My wife is an extremely talented animal behaviorist, and she keeps reminding me, hey, Ben, guess what? We're animals too. And the importance of listening to your instincts and your gut. Now, that's been kind of drilled out of a lot of us. For someone like you that's on the front lines day in and day out, frankly, it's just a matter of experience.
That's 100% true. And to me, instinct of mine really turned on when I was at war. I always say that the lion inside me kind of woke up when I went to war, because it was this need to survive, this primal instinct that all of a sudden came to the forefront of my brain, literally, and honed in those survival skills. And that's the thing, that's the biggest thing with us, is the hybrid wolf, police officer, soldier, Marine. We embrace those instincts, right? We embrace the heightened awareness, the heightened arousal, so to speak, of our listening skills, our smells, everything. I mean, there's points where I've done searches in houses looking for a bad guy, and he was hiding in a crawl space. And the only reason why, for example, this actually happened a little while ago. This bad guy was hiding in the bathroom in a crawl space, and something led me to that bathroom. Something led me to the linen closet. Something led me to where he was hiding, and that's that instinct, that we have as hybrid wolves, that we embrace, where my gut and all my senses are telling me, all right, go this way, go into this bathroom, check the linen closet, and look at, oh, you got a crawl space there. And sure enough, that's where that bad guy was hiding. So we embrace those things versus suppress them, which a majority of society does.
So if I had you on my team, I wouldn't even need them to send a canine.
I will take the canine, because it's much easier with the canine.
And in fairness, he's got sharper teeth. But I got to tell you, this is the point of the show that I read so often where I'm wishing I had another hour. But there's a couple of things I want to cover also when we come back from the break, and I want to focus on Project Sapient and what you're doing there. But before we wrap this up about the hybrid, so would you propose that these type of people are born this way, and somewhere in their life they choose to follow the path of light or the path of darkness?
Yeah, 100%. It's every decision from the day they are born to the day wherever they are. Every decision that they make, that's where they end up, either to the light or to the dark. And
can they be rescued after a certain point? This is not a political show. It's not a theology show either.
No. At a certain point, yes, but when it becomes too late, you can never really get them back to the light, so to speak, because once a hybrid wolf gets a taste for whatever they're, that's it. They're stuck in it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking with Ayman Kafel. Visit ProjectSapient.org. You can also find some fascinating writing under his name at thehavokjournal.com. When we come back, we'll talk about Project Sapient, which was founded to engage brothers and sisters in law enforcement and military communities in conversations that need to be had and exemplify the positive and unpack the controversy plaguing the profession in our society. We'll be right back. Welcome back to American Warrior Radio, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia. We're speaking with Ayman Kafel. He's a former Army veteran and now 15 years into a law enforcement career. And, Ayman, before we get into Project Sapient, there's something just on the break I was thinking about our conversation. And in my day job, Thursday, Friday, this previous week, I'm on the Zoom conference, and we've got a task force for something. And the first 30 minutes of the conference was all about our feelings and where we draw our experiences from and all this stuff. And I'm not, it was very, very frou-frou, but it wasn't really pertinent in the context of the problem we were there to solve. And that's 30 minutes I'll never get back. And I bail by the hour, so I guess it wasn't so bad. But in the case of your profession, life experiences, values, how they might affect your reaction in a situation does make a difference. Right?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, 100% true.
So tell one of the other things, tell us an example of the female victim you had who was of Middle Eastern descent. I think that's just such a great story.
So we had a female of Middle Eastern descent who only spoke Arabic. And I went to, so I get a phone call on my off days. And from one of my friends at work, and he was telling me this whole story about this female victim who's from the Middle East, from Egypt. and she only speaks Arabic, and it was tough for him to understand exactly what her needs were. So he put her on the phone, and I spoke to her for about 15 to 20 minutes, and it turned out it wasn't anything really serious that needed attention right away. So I was comfortable by saying, all right, well, I'm in tomorrow. I can talk to you tomorrow, and we can go into it a little bit more, because with Middle Eastern culture, talking face to face is better because I get to see expressions, hands, gestures, stuff like that. It was just we're more face-to-face type, conversation. So the next day I went over there, and she had her brother on FaceTime, and he was in Dubai. And while talking to the victim and brother, it was more of a mental health thing, so it wasn't really anything serious. But I think her being new in this country, she did not know who to turn to but to call the police. So I ended up assisting her in getting resources over to her. And her brother, very nice of him to say, he said, he was so happy to know that there's a police officer who speaks Arabic and understands the culture and can help guide them while they're in the country.
And the reason I want to mention that is I'm thinking about for me, for such a long time, our military was the most colorblind, and I hate the word equity, but the best melting pot on the planet and in our society. And your story reminds me of that as well, and maybe our law enforcement community, and what a strength that is.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing people do not, whether they want to realize it or not. But even in our law enforcement, you have a mishmash of experiences and people who lived all sorts of different lifestyles. I mean, one of my closest friends used to lived in the projects of one of a really bad city out here in Massachusetts, and he always told me he remembers he had to lay down on the ground because of drive-by shootings, and those experiences humanize us to be that that compassion to come out for our victims, to have that understanding to say, yeah, I've been there, that I understand, and my role now, I decided to do something about it and to get back to the community.
And would you consider Project Sapient that part of that, giving back to the community?
Yes. Project Sapient was created by, one of the reasons why I created Project Sapient was to bridge that gap between the, civilians and the warrior class, or the civilians and law enforcement and military, is to bridge that gap, to really give people a kind of first-person perspective of what goes on inside the mind of a law enforcement officer, inside the mind of a combat soldier.
And this, you founded this in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, and boy, it's really taken off. Congratulations.
Yeah, no, thank you. I had no idea that I would get this type of audience through Project Sapient. I did not know that. Again, I took a huge risk, so to speak, because one, I'm still active law enforcement, and I'm still doing the job and being out there. So I didn't know how it was going to really take, but it turned out it was a great decision to go, and the positive feedback I've been getting has been overwhelming.
Now, I would guess, talking to so many of your comrades in both military and law enforcement, you've heard some pretty knuckleheaded stories, mostly dealing with policy. I'll leave that at that. But one of the things that you and I both feel, and in the pre-interview, I shared an experience I had recently, and the importance of continual training. And I was surprised, frankly shocked that, you talk about a discipline where you want people to always be on their game. I want my heart surgeon, my dentist, my radiologist, my CPA to know what the heck they're doing. And sometimes situations change, but you've expressed that sometimes our law enforcement officers have to pay out of their pocket to get this training.
Yeah, well, to get really good training, a lot of times our law enforcement officers are forced to have to pay out of pocket to get, some really good training in. And I think even we spoke before, I don't think people realize how often we qualify at the range, unless you're part of a specialty unit like I am, where we're always training. But the typical patrol officer, maybe if they're lucky, they get to qualify twice a year, if they're lucky. And that's just 100 rounds total for the year. And, here you go, you passed, and you're back out on the streets.
I'm going to go through 100 rounds in about half an hour tomorrow. So,
yeah, exactly.
But I kind of, I'm not making light of that, but especially in today's environment, in our communities and across the country, I would think we want these men and women who wear the badge to be the best trained possible. I mean, that just seems to me like a no debate investment.
Oh, no, exactly. And it kind of, it surprises me, or it doesn't really surprise me anymore that it's so overlooked, that we should be as well trained as your doctors, your heart surgeons, your these high-end professions where literally somebody's life is, on the operating table. I mean, I would want my cardiologist to be the best in the world because my life is in now his or her hands. Same with being a police officer. When I'm responding to an active shooter or some major disaster, you'd hope that the first cop that shows up knows what the heck they're doing.
I'm going to have to have you back on because we didn't get to the suicide and depression and PTSD, and that's something I don't want to neglect. But folks can visit your website, projectsapient.org, to learn more about that. And, of course, there's a lot of great articles at HAVOK Journal as well. For you, what would be Ayman's mission accomplished moment with this project?
The mission accomplished, or the continuing of the mission, is to bring to light the hardships in the law enforcement community, in the military community, especially with PTSD and traumatic brain injury, which is so prevalent in these professions. And 9 times out of 10, it's a Band-Aid solution that policymakers put together where it's not enough. It's something that really needs to be looked at, where a police officer suffering from PTSD doesn't get ostracized just for it. Gets the help that is needed, that is required. And that's something that actually I recently had an interview with an individual who wrote hire perfectly. We do routine maintenance on our vehicles all the time, oil change, whatever we need to do. Why don't we do that with our own minds?
Yeah.
Where we do these routine maintenance in our minds, for our minds.
Now, I'm going to ask you to stand still because it sounds like now you're in the parking lot of a Cracker Barrel. So don't stand still right there. We still got you. So anyway, I want to encourage people to visit projectsapient.org, and I would propose to you, sir, that when it comes to not just training, but some of those mental health issues that in effect your podcast is doing a lot to help that. It's free training, maybe.
Yeah. It's we try to put out as much, or I try to put out as much information for free training, and even I put together, for example, like vet-to-vet events where it's talking to other veterans who are work and being proficient to help guide fellow veterans and law enforcement officers to better facilities for doctors for PTSD and various other issues.
Well, we appreciate you spending some time with us today, sir, and stay safe out there.
Thank you very much, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, over 300 podcasts like this can be found at AmericanWarriorRadio.com. We're on your favorite streaming platform. I won't list them all. There's too many. Until next time, all policies and procedures are to remain in place. Take care.
Guys, it's Pete again, doing a little bit of an outro for Ayman. He had a great time doing this radio show, American Warrior Radio. Thank you so much to everybody listening to us, man. This has been an unbelievable journey. Getting the word out there with law enforcement and the military and all the issues that we need to discuss. Man, we love you guys. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Stay sapiens.